So you built the bunny ears gigs.
I built the bunny ears, yes. If you ever used Instagram effects that put bunny ears on people's heads, yeah, that was my team.
In 5 years, every legal team will
automate 99% of repetitive and mundane work. I think that's probably the destiny of every single company. At a certain point, the magic breaks, and that happened to Facebook as well.
Hello, gigs, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Ellie. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, for anyone who hasn't met you, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Geeks. I'm CTO at Wordsmith AI, and I'm responsible for building the product itself. So I started as an intern at Microsoft, and I worked there on the product called Dynamics 365. And then I moved to Facebook, where I spent majority of my career, about 11 years, working on different kind of problems related to relevance ranking, optimization, augmented reality, and things like that.
So you built the bunny ears gigs.
I built the bunny ears, yes. If you ever used Instagram effects that put bunny ears on people's heads, yeah, that was my team.
That was all gigs. So thinking back to like when you were, let's just say around 15, is that what you envisioned yourself doing, like working on these types of problems? Like, or what did you expect that you'd be doing?
Yeah, in general, I've got access to computer very early, I think maybe at the age around 7 or 8. And back
Yeah.
then computers were actually very boring. There was no TikTok, there was no Facebook, and actually programming was a fun activity that you can do. So I started programming pretty early, and then I got in the school in what's called competitive programming. So you're similar in sports. There is class of programming when people are solving problems, and who solves it better and faster wins. So I got into that, and that was very popular thing in Ukraine in general. And it's
Yeah.
kind of very easy way to get into big tech company, because on the interviews in those companies, people are usually asking these type of questions that people who are doing competitive programming are good at. I also got into music at some point of time. So probably around 15, there was a real question whether I should continue playing in a band or go and do programming seriously. But in reality, it was not really a question. I was always mediocre as a musician, but with programming, it felt like there might be a more interesting career.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine alternative life where you're in a band? What was your band's name?
So the band's name, yeah, that's interesting. It was called Rising.
Oh my God, there you go. You could have lived an alternative life. Walk me through the decision to leave Meta, which is obviously such an established company, to work and to build a legal AI startup. Was there a specific moment where you thought, okay, I'm ready to go? Or what was that?
Definitely, this company was absolutely formative in my own experience and my career. And the main reason for that is that the company in early days and kind of mid-age days, right? I would say it was around 2013 to 2017. That was I felt was golden age of the company. But it had very specific culture focus on product building, and it was very effective at that. Even the company was already pretty sizable, right? It was thousands of employees, but it still maintained this early days focus on building products, making sure that users are happy with the product, growing it. And culture really focused on builders, and I absolutely loved it. And especially coming from bigger company, which Microsoft was at that stage, that was actually very revealing and refreshing, how fast company can operate and how much it can focus on building products and building nice experiences. But unfortunately, I think that's probably the destiny of every single company. At certain point, the magic breaks. And that happened to Facebook as well. There are some external factors like regulations that came down, which actually really impacted engineering culture more than you can see from outside. But there was also overhiring. So again, Meta was really careful about maintaining the strong culture, making sure that all the managers that are onboarding really understand and project it. But at some point of time, hiring becomes so rapid that this culture transfer stopped. And that, then when company devolved into like much more slower moving, like some politics emerged and things like that. And it was very clear that the best way out of it is, like go and try
Yeah.
to build the same culture that I really like, and I think it's really effective for building products. Go and replicate it elsewhere. Like it could have been like joining some smaller company, but also it felt like super interesting challenge to go and start the company of my own. Plus, of course, generative AI, right? Like that was the
Yeah.
time when it emerged. So it felt like really good time and really interesting time to make a move and try to build something on my own.
Why, though, legal specifically, like out of the literally hundreds of thousands of problems that AI could solve?
It seemed like very interesting domain that is relatively untouched by technology.
Yeah.
So at that point of time, like, yeah, there were CLMs, there were a couple of dedicated legal solutions. But if you look at different industries, legal was probably having like one of the smallest technology penetration.
Yeah.
And it felt like actually legal AI can make the difference here. And like even like when we started early conversations with investors and early conversations with potential customers or potential partners, like it all felt like, yeah, like that's probably the moment when things will turn. And yeah, that was like one of the main reasons. Like it's a very interesting space to come with new technology.
Coming from Meta that had its own like really specific culture and I guess way of working, was it anything that you had to almost unlearn when you came into a startup?
So at Meta, and especially at Meta, you can measure everything, right? You can change button color and understand whether it was good change or bad change, whether more people
Yeah.
are engaging with the product or not. While when you start from scratch, right, like you get to the point when you can measure something like only probably after a couple of years of
Yeah.
development. So that was definitely one of the bigger things. And then like culturally, like all these big tech companies, they basically build support networks that you don't see but you use, right? So you're like all these offices, meals, even laundry, this wasn't matter. So all these things, and then suddenly you kind of get back to reality, right? Where you need to solve it on your own and you need to solve it for the company. So that's definitely a big difference. Though I guess like it's probably like a more reasonable place to be. Um,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, had to go back to
mm,
doing your own
mm,
laundry,
mm,
poor thing.
mm.
Now that you're in it, what is like, has there been anything that's been super surprising that you've learned in particular about lawyers and working with AI that you didn't expect? Like you mentioned how like this industry, and even when I joined it, it had been so untapped. Like yes, we had CLMs, but we know how that all went. But yeah, has there been anything that's been a surprise to you?
Yeah, actually, yes. In general, like my previous experience with lawyers was mostly a kind of experience working with gatekeepers, right? So, like I
Yeah.
say, at Meta, right, like they will usually be just trying to make sure that nothing bad ships, and the ultimate set of it is when nothing ships at all, right? So the interactions was mostly like we want to build something, and lawyers will say, "Oh, you better not to build that."
Yeah.
And experience, was like pretty like one-sided and very strange. And I think the biggest thing that that I found out that
Strange.
actually lawyers are actually generally interested in technologies. They are generally interested in adopting new features and trying new products and like using AI. Also, like that's also the question that I very often get from, for example, like candidates that I am interviewing, like aren't lawyers are like kind of very strict and very to the letter and like how AI that can hallucinate work in this space. And what I found out that yes, like of course legal documents should be very strict and very accurate, but also lawyers have very reasonable tolerance for AI making mistakes as long as there is a way to correct that. Because again, like it speeds up a lot. You still need to proofread, and that's completely normal. That's the same thing in engineering, right? Like AI writes code with bugs, but it's still a very good thing.
Yeah.
And from this perspective, like I feel like like lawyers are actually like a lot like engineers, right? They actually like technology, and they actually like very tolerant to like imperfections in the technology, which I actually didn't expect.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would
Mm.
totally agree with that. I think that's been one of the biggest changes, I would say, that generative AI has brought, in the way in which I've been working with lawyers, is that they have been so much more interested in this level of technology and understand it. And like you said, yes, they're a lot more tolerant of things going wrong, but they just want to understand why and
Yeah.
how they can change that next time. But yeah, it's been very
Yeah.
interesting.
It's interesting because like also like humans make a lot of mistakes, right? And
Yeah.
like lawyers, of course, like they would be very tolerant, to like interns, associates, right? Or like junior
Yeah.
people who are learning the ropes, right? And like correcting them. And with AI, it's very much the same, right? Like it's just like a little bit more junior employee in your team and requires a little bit more supervision, but the output is extremely valuable.
Did you assume anything about legal work that turned out to be wrong? Like, considering that you saw them as gatekeepers and you probably weren't as in depth as what you are now, like, you know so much. You probably know as much as I do when it comes to contracts and legal work itself. But yeah, was there anything that you assumed that turned out to be wrong?
I think, like one thing that I kind of like didn't understand in general is, like how contracting is structured and like how much
Yeah.
actually structure is underneath, right? And like how well it is defined. Like, like it's almost again like there are a lot of parallels to engineering here.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like like a well-structured code that like you have like specific wording for specific reasons. Like that's something that like not having experience with law before, I didn't understand, right? Like to me, all these documents looked like also generally very complicated, very insurmountable.
Yeah.
And like I never saw that actually like as soon as you start understanding like the principles behind them, you actually like it all makes a lot of sense, and the structure is nice and in a way actually very beautiful and interesting.
Yeah. Oh my God, I don't think anybody's ever called contracting beautiful, but there you go. There you have it, folks. Contracting is beautiful. But it is so complex. Like, I obviously haven't worked in-house. I was very used to a one company's very specific way of doing contracting. But I think the biggest surprising thing to me was also just the various ways people have been doing it and the weird and wonderful things that you see when it comes to redlining, and then having to actually build a product around that that works for all of those different types of people
Yeah.
has been, I would say, interesting to say the least. Has definitely been a challenge. But what has, so if people aren't aware, like you have and you still do work very, very closely with customers. And I think that's what makes the product as good as it is that we genuinely really, really do listen to people. But what is something, or has there been anything that a customer has taught you that's changed the product?
Yeah, there were like multiple times. Like that's basically like that's my favorite sessions, right?
Yeah.
When like I can go and talk to customers, especially if they had a chance to use our product already and like provide feedback on like that's what's not working and like that's what's working for me, etc. I'd say maybe like the biggest revelation, like it was also in contracting. Like I guess like I focus quite a lot on this space, but the difference between first-party paper review and third-party
Yeah.
paper review, right? So like coming at the problem to me, it felt like like that similar problem, like you build a product that satisfies its needs, and like that's what we build, and then like after talking to customers and understanding their flows, I actually came to realization that like that's absolutely completely different workflows, and like first party paper should be done in very different way. It's interesting that like next stages of negotiation of third party paper, they're looking like first party paper,
Yeah.
but the first stage between third party and first party is very different. And yeah, like it definitely was a revelation coming from talking to customers. Like this one probably was the biggest one, but in general, like every time you talk to someone who's using your product, you learn a lot of new things. And luckily now it's actually so easy to go and build and improve the product with like all the capabilities that AI gives to engineering. So
Yeah.
it's actually very rewarding to hear feedback and be able to very quickly address a lot of points.
Yeah, exactly. So keep giving your feedback and you'll probably see it in the product. Um, There has been a lot of talk in the industry around the general LLMs and like the frontier models and compare them to legal AI centric tools. So a lot of our listeners could be using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. Be completely honest, is that enough? And if not, why?
I have to admit these tools are overall great, right? And
Yeah.
especially when products like Claude Cowork or like Claude Code, which like pretty much the same product, right? Like it's more engineering
Yeah.
focused, but capability-wise they're similar, or Codex emerged. like they are extremely capable, right? And by default, they can do a lot of things, right? So for example, like they can do some version of document redlining, or like they can draft a document. So these are great capabilities. But I think, like they are not going all the way to where it's required to get the maximum out of AI. And like I have like basically 3 different areas where I feel it really matters. It's high precision workflows like redlining, it is integrations, and it is user experience, right? And like on high precision workflows, for example, like redlining, yes, like Claude will be able to redline your document, but then there will be a lot of small bits and pieces. For example, like it will not maintain the list properly, it will not update cross references and things like that. That, like for general purpose product is not that important, but is really important for legal documents. And like getting this, like last 10 to 20% is really hard and really important. And it's actually really annoying for customers, like when like AI drafted really nice clause, but didn't change the numbering in the rest of the document, right?
Yeah.
And like that's what non-specialized tools usually will do. Then integrations, again, like Claude has a lot of integrations, but then there will be shortcomings. So for example, DocuSign would be a great example. You can integrate with DocuSign, but go this last mile of making sure that like there are capabilities for AI to place signature in the right place, to write different messages to different recipients, etc. Like that's not something that you will get out of the box, and it requires again like an enormous amount of polish and actually enormous amount of customer feedback. Like that's
Yeah.
how our DocuSign connector got so good, because like we are constantly getting feedback from customers on what's not working. But going this last mile is really important, and like it really makes a difference between the product that you integrated and it works perfectly versus product that like there will be constant struggle with, and you end up like still going to email, or you're still going to DocuSign website rather than integrating in the way that AI can drive the whole signature process all the way through. And then the third one is the level of polish, right, that we introduce. And here, like I guess like my favorite example is our jurisdiction picker. Like that's like a pet project on my own. Just making sure that we have all the required jurisdictions, like all the different like like offshore jurisdictions, right,
Yeah.
which can be important. Like making selection work really well, like knowing where primary sources are. Like I think here also my favorite example is like, let's say Bailey org website with UK case law. Like no one outside of legal can take that size seriously, right? You just look at it from the first glance, and that's what Google does as well, right? Like Google is
Yeah.
not indexing it well because it is like a web, like you feel like it's a website that came from like 90s, maybe
Yeah.
even earlier than that. But it is like a really important source for legislation, right? And like that's the case with like pretty much all the primary sources, and like understanding this difference and building the product to accommodate for this difference, like that's what makes specialized legal AI solutions superior to the general one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like we've talked about this before, but I could go on about it all day. Like we have had vibe coding and hackathons for years, and I would seriously push people to go and try it out. Like build things with Claude, like build things with Codex and give it a go. But there's multiple reasons why it's just not going to be as good, or the outputs aren't going to be as polished for you as a legal centric AI tool. For example, even something as simple as the underlying models. So by having Wordsmith, we can make sure that you're using the right model for the right task. And that's something that we just do within the product. Whereas if you're using Claude 24/7, Claude does go down. It's a brilliant tool. We absolutely adore it, but everything does go down. So when it has an outage and you're in the middle of a really, really important task, you're a bit screwed. Whereas if that happens to us, we can plug you out and plug you into another
Yeah,
LLM.
yeah, that
You
actually
won't even
happens
know.
way often. Yeah, way
Yeah,
more often that people expect. Like it's actually
exactly.
pretty
But you
constant
don't
struggle.
know because you're doing it in the back end, and it goes completely unnoticed. The other things are even around customer support. So I've often said that, you are a drop in the ocean when it comes to Anthropic. Whereas if you go for a legal centric tool, you have a team of customer support, you've got legal engineers. We actually have an on-call legal engineer who mans our customer support chat. So you are getting a technical specialist who is going to be looking at your queries and your answers and your problems and helping you with them basically
Yeah,
24/7.
that is actually that's actually great insight, and I think like that's the first time like working in legal space that I understood that our both account executives and our customer support, they actually need to have very good understanding of legal workflows, and like many of them actually like have a certain legal degree. Because the flows are so specialized and the problems
Yeah.
are so specialized. So it is really important for customer support to deeply understand the processes that companies are running. And you just cannot get it with like people that are not in this domain. So that's extremely important point.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then the final one for me is like going back to hackathons, how many of those things actually make it into production? And then beyond that, like we've had interns in the past, like even in past jobs where they might have built something, it was phenomenal, but then they left. So there's nobody there. I think people really underestimate the enormous, gigantic weight of rollout and maintenance and actually pushing things forward and maintaining them and the innovation that goes behind it. You're basically running your tiny own little startup within legal, and that is a massive, massive job. Not to mention the skill and the level of salary that's going to take for somebody to have to like actually have to do that. We have a team of engineers and product and legal engineers who are going to be able to do that for you for a fraction of the cost. You can tell I'm very passionate about this. That's why I'm getting very
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
agitated.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, like the AI industry is moving at completely breakneck pace. And
Yeah.
even, like as a product team, like it's really hard to stay on top of like all the modern developments and all the changes.
Yeah.
And like we are basically like spending all our time building product, right? And like it's our job to stay on top of everything new that is coming in. But like for someone who who doesn't have this as a primary job
Yeah.
responsibility, like yeah, it definitely doesn't make sense, and it's just overwhelming. The amount of information that one needs to process is overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say in summary, like my advice is definitely give it a go. Like I will always tell people to build with this technology. I think you need to expose yourself to it. But if you want an enterprise grade level solution that you can rely on, you need to go for a legal AI centric tool. Obviously, I'm going to push us. That's my job. But evaluate them, try them all out, compare them to what it is that you've built, and I can almost guarantee you that you're going to want to go for the enterprise level grade solution. Cool. So my next question for you is, what is the use case, and people love use cases, that you wish more or you wish more legal teams were using AI for?
Yeah, I would say my number one would be legal intake and different types of complicated automations. Because now at this stage, what I found, in general in industry, not only with Wordsmith, but with like pretty much all legal products, the work that users, lawyers are starting, like it's usually human driven, right? So the lawyer will come, open legal tool, open Wordsmith, then put in the documents and ask AI to perform certain actions, right? Like redline, review, etc., or draw something. But the main value that you can get if you kind of flip this process around, right? Like you give AI to monitor incoming requests, like email and things like that, and then do some pre-work and then surface the result to humans for approval or for review, for correction, etc. And it is, like I'll be honest, like it's not very easy to set up these flows, right? And like I guess like you know this really well, right? Working in legal operations. But when you get this done and when you get this right, the value is enormous. Like it is saving so much time. And I think, like basically my main goal is to try to make product as easy to use as possible to unlock all these workflows and allow our customers to set them up in the way that it is actually easy and the results are good. And like that's the thing, like basically the biggest time saving that we can get from lawyers, especially on like pretty mundane work, right? Like tracking and making sure that like all the follow-ups are done and like all the iterations are, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So you touched on tasks and intake, and like I've even seen Slack messages from you over the past couple of weeks of how much value even you get from that particular part of the product, like in engineering itself. So I do think it's a no-brainer. Um, it is a complex workflow because obviously every business is different, but genuinely I think you've made it so easy to set up. It's just that the possibilities are endless. So it ultimately comes down to the planning and the, I guess, the scoping of legal operations itself to actually go and set something like this up.
And it also, like requires a little bit of iteration, right?
Yeah.
So, like usually like the first version you do set up, like it might have some imperfections, right? So for example, like tasks will be created for something you don't need, or like escalations don't work quite right. So, like just like putting a little bit of effort, like a couple of iterations on the like prompts instructions for the agents that are triaging this task, like that can go a really long way and actually get flows to absolutely great state.
So we talk to a lot of customers, you and I, who want to see like the art of possible and like the absolute extremes of what AI can do and revolutionize their legal team. What would you say are the differences between some of the most sophisticated legal teams that we've worked with and what they're working on and how they're using AI and our own product versus maybe the average team who are maybe pretty new to this and they want to get to that level? What's the difference?
Right. So, like I guess, like it will be a little bit of repeat of my previous answer, right? But it all boils down to automation, like how sophisticated is that? So, a lot of customers will be using AI just in the way that they throw in the documents and they say what needs to be done, and then it's done. And then, like the flows that I have seen, like probably the most interesting and most sophisticated, right? When agent is monitoring inbox and getting contract redlined and then sending it to humans for approval. And then after approval is done, it automatically goes and sends it to the DocuSign, right? So here we're talking about intake, we're talking about automations, we're talking about integrations, and like basically getting it all together and tying it up like that allows to build really sophisticated flows, and it allows basically to save enormous amount of time for lawyers and get them focused on specific things that are needed, right? Like only on escalations that are worth looking at
Yeah.
rather than looking at the like documents and contracts that are generally fine, and like I can definitely do a good judgment on that.
We all want a crystal ball and we all want to know where this goes in the next 12 to 18 to 24 months. What will feel normal soon that you think sounds a bit wild today when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I think, like proliferation of agents, right? So you can see that starting now, and you can see that we're basically shifting into the mode that AI operate autonomously on really large chunk of work, and then like human is just looking at the results and like issues certain corrections, instructions, etc. And we see that in certain areas, like we see actually quite a lot of that in the coding, like that's, I guess, like where frontier is moving faster. But I think like in 5 years, that would be pretty much omnipresent. So there will be a
Okay.
lot of work happening out there very autonomously, and then like humans will be basically just spot checking and course correcting, and then like thinking about what kind of work needs to be done, and like strategy plans, etc., rather than like actually like moving things around, editing documents, etc. So I feel like, yeah, like vast majority of this, like kind of more repeatable, more mundane work will actually be automated away in this way.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to be managing teams of agents in the next 12 to 18
Y-
months?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like you can see, like you're active participant on our internal Slack, right? And like
Yeah.
how work is being done, and like that's exactly the feeling you're getting, right? Like you're
Yeah.
dispatching a lot of work to agents to do analysis, do coding, prepare documentation. I'll say, like the managing agent experience feels very different from managing humans experience. So it's, like it's, when people are saying that managing teams of agents, like you can, like imagine an organization, right? And, meetings, etc. Like it probably won't look like that. But yeah, the essence is that, like every human will be managing a lot of work happening autonomously driven by AI agents.
Yeah, and I mean that opens a whole other kettle of fish, and we don't have to get into it. And I know it's not explicitly your domain, but I'm sure you've thought about it. Like, what do you think happens to, well, lawyers in general? I imagine teams are going to get smaller, but also junior lawyers. I think it creates more work. Like, my job didn't exist 2 years ago, but have you thought about this?
Yeah, so I think the main change will be that the type of work people are doing will be shifting. So that
Yeah.
will absolutely be the case. Will there be less work for humans? I don't think so. At least at this point of time, it doesn't look like that, right? And like even like when we are looking at like what our customers are doing, right? Like they uh, usually still have enough work for humans to do. It's just another kind of work. It's more valuable work. They can deploy humans on something that is more valuable or like get more done,
Yeah.
and free up people from like really boring and mundane things. So I think like that's the main change that is happening. In terms of juniors and like how they get trained, so that is a very interesting question, and I think in general, like that's definitely something that we as a humanity should pay more attention to, because
Yeah.
that's true that a lot of learning usually happens through doing like first simple things and then like a little bit more complex and like do a lot of repetition, and this part is definitely being taken by AI. So the question is like how we train people who are new to the industry is really important. Said that, I think people are generally like very good at adopting, right? So like if previously you were starting by learning how to like transcribe the recording, right, that
Yeah.
partner is making, and then like doing some red lines, etc. Like now you will start by learning, like how to prepare a good document with AI, and
Yeah.
like spot check like as many mistakes as possible, and like eventually it will shift to something else. But I think like even like in 5-10 years from now, like getting started in the profession will feel very organic, even though it will be very different from how it was before.
I like to think about it in a more positive way because I think it is really, really easy to go down the depths of despair of, oh my God, what's going to happen to humanity? Um, but I really am bullish on the fact that there's going to be a premium placed on human intelligence and like what can we do that AI can't? It's emotion, it's community, it's feeling. So simple things like I think that if we even look at courts, we'll probably see the automation of parking tickets. That's a pretty easy one. Like, were you parked in a spot you can't park in? Yes or no? Very simple. Or speeding tickets. Um, but then where we couldn't is maybe a deeper, darker murder case where you actually need to, have empathy and emotion and understanding and things that AI can't do. Or the other one I always give is I really believe that, in grocery stores, how we all have the automated self-serve checkouts, that's probably going to become more and more the norm, but you can't tell me that an older grandparent who gets very, very little one-on-one human time wouldn't pay an extra premium to go to a checkout that has a human on it so that she can have a talk for 5 minutes with someone because she's not been able to all week because she's been dealing with AI agents. Um, I think that's possibly the future, and I think as long as we have that positive outlook and we still hold humans to, we put ourselves on a pedestal a little bit more, I think we're all going to be okay. But that's the way
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
to look at it.
I'm pretty sure that will be the case. And yes, like I think like this valuable human interaction, right, that you said that
Yeah.
is happening at checkout, right? Like it was just coincidental that it was happening in checkout. But
Yeah.
like wouldn't it be better if these two people can spend some time doing something more interesting, right? I don't know, like playing a board game, right, or discussing a book or something, right? So like it
Yeah.
can evolve in something where, yeah, like, you don't need to like go to grocery store to have human interaction. You can, like go elsewhere, right? And there will be
Yeah.
jobs specifically to like have, like nicer and more interesting interaction. Well, there are these jobs in fact already, but that
Yeah.
probably will be getting more and more prevalent.
Exactly. And trades, and who knows, maybe you can go back to playing in a band. Anyways, we are almost out of time, but I want to do a very, very quick rapid fire close round. So, one AI tool not legal that you think is severely underrated.
Yeah, I would probably call Manus.
Love Manus.
That is very interesting tool, right? So like in the way I described, like why legal specific tools are superior to general purpose tools in legal domain specifically, Manus is kind of superior for personal productivity in similar way, right? Like it just does a kind of 10 to 20% more than like Cowork will do or something else will do, and that makes a difference. So that's really interesting tool to check out.
Okay. Most overhyped thing in AI right now.
Yeah, I would say, like, well, I guess like now probably it's like loop engineering or graph engineering, like basically approaches of how to drive AI. But I think like this kind of, like here is the secret sauce of how to drive AI, like in general, like it's pure hype, right? Like it's, yeah, it's mostly marketers trying to create the hype and sell certain solutions.
Sell you
In
a
re
course on LinkedIn. Everybody sell a
Exactly,
course on
exactly.
LinkedIn. And for anybody who doesn't know, what is loop engineering, very, very simply?
Well, the basic idea is that you get AI to do repeatable loops of doing the work and self-correcting, doing the work and self-correcting. And like it's just like very natural way, right? Like if you work with AI, you probably will figure out pretty quickly that asking AI to self-correct and try again, like that's a really nice and easy pattern. And you don't need to like take a course on loop engineering to figure that out.
A book, person, or idea that shaped the way that you build today.
Basically, the idea is that you don't need to like overwork on a thing in the way you think you should to get it right, but you should get the minimum valuable product out there, get feedback, and iterate based on how people perceive it and how you perceive it. Like I feel like it was basically the most profound shift I had in my career when I realized that there's actually the way to get to better products, right? Like sometimes you can feel, oh, you're shipping first time something that doesn't meet your internal quality bar, but no, it's actually the opposite. Like you will get to much better product much faster with this approach.
Okay, Gigs, it has been so much fun having you on. I always enjoy our chats, but where can people find you? Because I know that you have a Substack that I want to plug.
Yeah, I do. So yeah, I'm writing Substack called Legal Engineer. So yeah, definitely, like it's free. So happy to see everyone there.
You should absolutely go and follow him, and he's the guy I learn most of my stuff from. So Gigs, like I said, thank you so much. This has been amazing, and I really appreciate you coming on.